What makes this season dangerous is that nothing looks obviously wrong from the outside. You still wake up every morning. You still respond to people. You still smile when you need to. You still try to convince yourself that things are fine. But internally, something feels unfamiliar now. It's like the version of you that carried your old life can no longer fully connect to the person you're becoming. And that creates a strange emotional tension that's difficult to explain to anyone else. Because from the outside, your life may look almost the same. But internally, your mind is changing. Your priorities are changing. Your emotional tolerance is changing. Even the way you experience people is changing. And if you've been feeling this lately, stay with me carefully. Because near the end of this video, I'm going to explain the hidden sign that appears right before life begins reorganizing itself in your favor. Most people misread that sign completely. They think it means they're lost. They think it means they failed. They think it means they're disconnected from their purpose. But in reality, it often appears right before one of the biggest transitions of a person's life. And because they misunderstand the season they're in, they walk away too early from the very chapter that was about to change everything. There's a kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. Not physical exhaustion, not the kind that disappears after rest. This is deeper than that. It's identity exhaustion. The exhaustion that comes from holding uncertainty for too long, from carrying invisible emotional weight nobody around you fully sees, from constantly trying to stay hopeful while your reality refuses to give you immediate confirmation that your effort matters. And after a while, you begin questioning yourself silently. Maybe I misunderstood my path. Maybe I wasted too much time. Maybe I'm trying to force something that was never meant for me. Maybe everyone else figured life out before I did. You don't always say those thoughts out loud, but they sit quietly in the background of your life, especially during late nights, especially during moments when you compare your timeline to everyone else's, especially when you're trying your hardest and still not seeing visible movement. But listen carefully to this part. Some of the most important transformations in life happen during seasons that feel emotionally invisible while you're inside them. No dramatic moment, no cinematic breakthrough, no instant reward, just quiet internal reconstruction. And because there's no visible proof yet, most people assume nothing important is happening. But transformation rarely feels powerful while it's occurring. Most of the time, it feels confusing. It feels slow. It feels emotionally disorienting. It feels like becoming unfamiliar to yourself before you fully understand who you're becoming next. And that's the part nobody prepares you for. There are 3 shifts that usually begin happening when your life is preparing to move into an entirely different chapter. And if you recognize these shifts in yourself, you are not falling behind. You are transitioning. The first shift, you've stopped reacting the way you used to. This one is subtle, but powerful. Situations that once would have emotionally consumed you for weeks still affect you, but they no longer control your entire nervous system. You recover faster now. You detach quicker. You no longer feel the need to chase closure from every person who misunderstands you. You no longer feel obligated to explain your heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. And honestly, part of you feels strange about that, because chaos used to feel normal. Emotional intensity used to feel meaningful. Overthinking used to feel productive. Constant anxiety used to make you feel emotionally connected to your goals. But now something inside you is changing. You're becoming quieter internally. Not emotionally dead, not disconnected, not numb, just less available for things that drain your spirit unnecessarily. And that change can feel uncomfortable at first, because when your nervous system finally stops surviving constantly, peace can initially feel unfamiliar. Some people around you may not understand this version of you. Some will say you changed. Some will say you became distant. Some people only felt comfortable with the version of you that overextended themselves to keep everyone else emotionally satisfied. But growth often disappoints people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. And that realization changes your relationships permanently, because you begin understanding that protecting your energy is not selfish, it's necessary. The second shift begins quietly after the first one. You start losing attachment to outcomes you once obsessed over, not because the dream disappeared, not because you stopped caring about your future, not because ambition left your life, but because your relationship with control is evolving. You're beginning to understand something most people spend their entire lives resisting. You cannot force alignment through desperation. And for the first time in a long time, you're starting to recognize the difference between chasing something and actually being ready for it. Those are completely different things. There are people asking life for opportunities they are emotionally unprepared to sustain. Relationships they would sabotage from insecurity. Success they would mishandle from unresolved wounds. Recognition they would use to validate pain instead of heal it. And sometimes life delays certain things not to punish you, but to protect both you and the opportunity from colliding too early. That delay frustrates the ego, but it strengthens the person, and eventually you realize something profound. Timing is not only about receiving, it's about becoming. Because if something arrives before your emotional foundation is stable enough to hold it, you can lose it just as quickly as it came. So, while you thought nothing was happening, life was building your internal capacity, your patience, your discernment, your emotional awareness, your ability to stay grounded when things finally begin moving. And this next part is deeply important, because the third shift is the one almost nobody talks about, and yet it's one of the clearest signs that your life is approaching a major internal breakthrough. You keep moving forward, even after motivation disappeared. Think about that carefully. You are still trying, still rebuilding, still showing up, still attempting to become better, even during days where your emotions gave you no encouragement at all. That matters more than you realize, because motivation is temporary. Anyone can feel inspired for a few days. Anyone can feel powerful during exciting moments. But real transformation begins when discipline survives disappointment. And many of you listening right now have already been living inside that season for a long time. You continued healing while secretly doubting yourself. You continued improving while feeling emotionally exhausted. You continued carrying responsibilities while privately fighting battles nobody around you fully noticed. And maybe nobody applauded you for it. Maybe nobody understood how difficult this season truly was for you. But your effort still mattered. Because the people who eventually experience deep peace in life are rarely the loudest people in the room. They are usually the people who refuse to abandon themselves during invisible seasons. The people who kept going quietly. The people who learned how to remain soft without becoming weak. The people who learned how to continue without needing constant validation from the outside world. And if you've made it this far into this video, I need you to hear this next part very carefully. The life you keep asking for requires a version of you that can finally hold it without fear destroying it. That's why this season has felt so emotionally strange. You weren't only trying to get somewhere externally, you were developing internally. You were learning emotional stability. You were learning discernment. You were learning self-respect. You were learning how to stop abandoning your own peace for temporary approval. You were becoming someone capable of sustaining what arrives next. And once you realize that, this entire season begins looking different. Suddenly, the waiting had meaning. The silence had purpose. The confusion was teaching you something important. Even the loneliness was revealing who actually belongs in your life. Not everything delayed is denied. Sometimes life removes distractions first, so you can finally recognize what genuinely aligns with you when it appears. And now, here's the hidden sign I told you about at the beginning. Right before life begins changing significantly, people often experience a season where almost nothing externally makes sense anymore. Old dreams lose emotional intensity. Old identities stop fitting naturally. Certain friendships fade, certain environments begin feeling emotionally heavy. Your routines feel disconnected from who you're becoming, and you begin feeling suspended between two versions of yourself. One version that can no longer continue the old way, and another version that hasn't fully arrived yet. That in-between space feels uncomfortable. Most people panic there, because uncertainty makes the human mind assume failure. But uncertainty is often the bridge between your previous identity and your next evolution. And bridges are uncomfortable places. They are not meant to feel permanent. They are transition spaces. That strange feeling you've been carrying lately, that mixture of exhaustion, grief, clarity, emotional distance, and quiet inner knowing, that feeling is not random. It's not weakness. It's not failure. And it's not you losing yourself. It's the feeling of an old version of you slowly losing control over your life. Part of you already senses that your life cannot continue in the same form much longer. You feel it in the way certain conversations drain you now, in the way environments that once felt normal suddenly feel heavy, in the way your soul has started craving peace more than excitement, depth more than attention, authenticity more than approval. Something underneath your reality is reorganizing itself, quietly. And because nothing external has fully changed yet, you keep questioning whether this internal shift is even real. But it is. Your standards are changing. You no longer want connections that require you to abandon yourself just to keep them. You no longer want temporary highs that leave you emotionally empty afterward. You no longer want to force things that constantly disturb your peace. Your energy is changing too. You're becoming more intentional with where your attention goes, more protective of your peace, more aware of how deeply people, environments, and habits affect your emotional state. Things you used to tolerate automatically now feel impossible to ignore. And that matters, because growth is not only about what you begin accepting into your life, it's also about what your spirit can no longer survive comfortably. That change can feel lonely at first, because when you stop participating in unhealthy patterns, you naturally outgrow certain people, environments, and versions of yourself. Some relationships lose compatibility. Some places stop feeling aligned. Some people no longer recognize who you're becoming. That can hurt, but not every loss is punishment. Some losses are proof that your inner world is finally evolving beyond what once kept you emotionally trapped. And even if you don't fully know where you're going yet, you can feel that you are no longer meant to stay where you were. That's the uncomfortable part about transformation. Sometimes clarity doesn't arrive immediately. Sometimes life removes your attachment to the old version of yourself before revealing where the new version is meant to go. And that in-between phase can feel deeply uncertain because humans crave clear answers, visible proof, guaranteed outcomes. But real transformation rarely begins with certainty. It begins with a quiet inner recognition that says, I cannot continue living the same way anymore. And even if your external life hasn't caught up yet, internally, the shift has already started. That matters more than you realize, because your outer reality usually changes after your inner identity changes, not before. People think life changes when opportunities arrive, but many times life changes the moment your standards change, the moment your self-respect deepens, the moment your nervous system stops normalizing chaos. That is where your future truly begins shifting. So don't measure this season only through visible results. Some of the biggest transformations happen invisibly first. Measure this season by who you are becoming while results are delayed, by how differently you respond to pain, by the boundaries you finally created, by the peace you no longer want to sacrifice just to feel accepted. Because the version of you being built during this season is the version that will eventually handle the opportunities you once prayed for. And when those opportunities finally arrive, and they will, you won't just experience life differently. You'll experience yourself differently. You'll move with calmer energy, stronger boundaries, less desperation, more emotional clarity, more self-respect. You'll stop chasing what drains you. You'll stop forcing belonging where you were only tolerated. You'll stop abandoning yourself to keep other people comfortable. And that changes the quality of everything that enters your life afterward. Because healed energy experiences life differently than survival energy. And that's why this season matters so much. You are not only waiting for your life to change, you are becoming someone capable of sustaining the change once it arrives. Before you leave this video, write this in the comments. I stopped doubting the process. I'm becoming ready for what's next. Write it like a decision, not a wish, a decision. Because this season was never only about waiting. It was about becoming. And if this message found you today, maybe it's because you needed confirmation that your life is not frozen. It's shifting. Quietly, internally, irreversibly. Trust what is changing inside you before the outside fully reflects it. Because the moment your inner world changes, your direction changes with it. And once your direction changes, your entire life eventually follows.